take your seats. Okay, everybody, please take your seats. We've got a program to follow. I mean, seriously, we could all talk for days on this subject, so particularly with what Tony just brought forward. Now, Tony has a workshop tomorrow afternoon at between 2 to 5, and Michelle and I will be sitting in and assisting him in that, and that will be about how he recalls his memories and maybe some tools that you can use yourself to recall memories. If you've had certain experiences off planet, and you may want some tools to be able to access those memories, then Tony's the workshop to go to. So now we're also asking for questions for the round table. So probably after Tony's talk there'll be heaps of questions. So just write them down, or just tell our volunteers, Kate and Vanessa over there. What have I got? The workshops for tomorrow. If you could be up here at 8:45 or so, or before 9, a few minutes before 9, give yourself the chance. Come up here and then we'll send you off from here. We've got 3. At the moment it'll be Sue Plavatich in here, Mary Rodwell in the Blue Water room, which is the other room we were using, and Michelle Kingston will be going into the Bridge room, which is just at the back there at 14 Nelson, with a lovely view over the community centre. So I'd better get going. Now, Rob didn't have, we brought him late into the schedule, so this will be his mini workshop. So feel free to enjoy this. This is going to be fun. So turning over to Rob.
Hi guys, how you doing? Thank you.
Oh, am I talking here? Yeah. Okay. Thanks for coming. Again, thanks for Michelle and Guy for putting this on. It's a very beautiful town you have here. I didn't make it this morning. I was kind of catching up and recovering and taking a little swim and making sure I had plenty of energy to share with you here today. It's a long trip and stuff, but I think I'm going to start out, and I'm going to have you all come up here, and once you pass these out, if you guys want to check out these different pyramids. The pyramid is, for those, how many people were not here yesterday? Oh, quite a few. So what we have here is a lens. It focuses the Earth's magnetism like a prism and creates 7 levels of energy, pyramid, fire in the middle. I'm not going to go, I'm going to go into these technologies here a little in the later part of the lecture, but so you get an understanding. Gold's molecular structure is pyramid shaped, diamond is pyramid shaped, and the carbon atom is pyramid shaped. So it has a principle of matter-made flesh. It creates a life force energy, and there's pyramids all over the planet. So when you line the pyramid to magnetic north, it creates a life force energy field, and I'll be showing you some pictures of that inside there. But it has a stabilizing and a balancing effect on your body's electromagnetic aura. You have a nervous system in your body. Nerves run through wires, and if you have electricity running through a wire, like a battery, magnetism is found at right angles. And if you disconnect the battery and you take a magnet and run it along it, you create electrical currents, so they're reciprocal. In your body, you have 72,000 more, major navies or nerves centers, but you have, billions of nerves. So this sum total of this electrical energy creates a magnetic aura. And that's started by the 12 cell salts in the brain. Well, depending on your astrology, you may have something. But chicken or the egg, actually, does the electricity create the aura? No. Actually, the soul life energy that's in your physical body creates the electricity. So that's the nature of our cells, is we are this electrochemical community of cells, and we have a life force that generates from us, and it works on a seven major centers switching posts that produces hormones into the bloodstream that affect your consciousness. So that's where all your feelings come from. You see your girlfriend and you get excited, that's your sacral or your sexual, your gonad chakras. You get hungry, that's your digestive chakra telling you it's time to eat. As you wake up in the morning, that's your pituitary gland that gets you going and gets you started in the day. When you look in, you want to see the light, you look up into your third eye and you pray, and that's your pineal gland. So these all have different functions and things in your body. So when you're wearing the pyramid, and normally it has to be aligned to magnetic north because gold's molecular structure is pyramid shaped. Every one of these pyramids has a gold molecule. So you align it to magnetic north, and it creates a, you don't even have to align to magnetic north, it creates a field in there, and it balances your endocrine glands. So that's what you're wearing. We're going to share some other technologies, the violet flame. We're going to talk about the Sintamani stone, and we're going to do some demonstration of laser crystal healing, which bathes the body. And I'm sorry, what was her name? Sue Pat, yeah. She talks a lot about the crystalline healing chamber. She was like an infomercial for this technology. It's really good. The Earth-based technology that you see here was given to us by the Pleiadians years ago. So I'm going to go through this real quick for those of you who weren't here yesterday, but I'm going to get into the good guys. We've heard a lot about the horrible, things that have gone on the earth and involved with the regressive or aggressive extraterrestrials who they're kind of like a syndicate. And they're like a syndicate, a mafia, and they've been using humanity as a resource. And they got in through the Nazis and stuff, and I'll go into paperclip and I'll show you some of the technology that they have. But let's go, and I'm going to move forward because I want to get into the really fun stuff. We're going to talk about time travel too in a positive way, and share some of that information slideshow. And let's see, I guess I pushed the green button. My tech man will come over and actually make it happen. And do you have the button? Oh, up there on that slideshow. Oh, okay. Okay. So, okay. I'm gonna have to fix that. Oh yeah, you need that little thing there, huh? Okay. So, we talked about planetary liberation for you folks. There is a plan by the benevolent extraterrestrials, probably leading off with the Venusians and the Pleiadians, to heal our planet, remove some of our criminals. You can read this. I'm not going to read it exactly, but basically speaking, there's a plan. It's coinciding with many time cycles in a cosmic wave to bring about what's called the event. And there are many, many aspects of positive forces or well-intended forces within the secret space program, and even those guys are kind of dark. The Solar Warden program, you heard directly about the Nazis program and stuff like that. So, like Carl Sagan, he probably didn't die. He's probably went to Mars. So, there's something called the event. How many people have heard of Cobra? Not too bad. Cobra is an individual who's working directly with the extraterrestrials and sharing some information. And he told me that there's this plan, and I wrote the first 40 pages in his book called The Event. And I'm gonna share that with you guys all. I'm gonna give it to Guy, and I got some other books you can have for free. If you go to my website, thepromiserevealed.com, you're going to be able to download these books for free and educate yourself on various subjects here. So we're not alone, never have been alone, and there's a benevolent space family out there. And I've been working with various aspects and different groups, primarily the Pleiadians and the Venusians, to share the information of planetary liberation and the spiritual message. Because this isn't just a physical message, it's a spiritual message and a vibration. As Sue said, it's a vibrational attunement. It's about raising your vibration. It's not necessarily knowing all the negative programs or all the positive programs. This is about restoring a vibration of the spirit of truth within yourself. So here we see the Venusian Valiant Thor with a thing in his hand, and next to him is his Vice Commander Dawn, and next to him is a girl named Jill, and I met her in Las Vegas several years ago. There's a book out. This is a conference I'm having in Mount Shasta this summer. If you all want to come from Australia, let me know, contact me by email, and I'll give you a 20% discount because you're coming so far. So we have some great people coming. We talked about them yesterday. Major George Filer has an incredible amount of a UFO thing called Filer's Files, F-I-L-E-R-S. You might want to sign up for that. He gets a free, I think it's once a week or once every 2 weeks, he puts out a picture of all the UFOs around the world that are reported to him. This is Cosmic Ray. And the lady next to him, I think I shared some of her story yesterday. She was born in 1385 on the Earth, and previously she was born into a Mongolian tribe of horsemen, and she was kind of the queen of the tribe, and she was called Lady Orda. And the second incarnation, she was born in 1385, and she was granted an immortality by a being, and she's still alive. She lived for, 13, so it's like she's lived for almost 700 years, I guess, or not quite, 600 and something years. And in 1946, she was taken back to Venus and trained for 12 years and became the first person to contact George Adamski. Now that guy on the cover there, Ray, he released his book in June, and these are two women from Venus. And one is Lady Columba, and one is Lady Aurora. And the one on the left, I'm going to share with you a picture of a guy that she worked for, but they both have different stories. The one on the right basically was helping an individual in like around 1900 or something when she was in her mid-20s. And she showed compassion for this being and helped him back to health, and he took her to Venus, and she's been working directly with a spiritual light hierarchy to help and heal the Earth. Now the Venusians have been very involved in the Earth's situation. They protected us from those Saurians and the reptilians repeatedly throughout the millennia, and they are watching very closely since the 40s when we had the ability for radar and nuclear power. It's not like they just found out about us. They've been watching us very closely, and they decided to try and talk sense into us. So the two women there, and that they're talking to is a guy who showed up as their security, and they also have another type of security, but some amazing stuff. If you look into ancient times, look, the ETs are pointing. Why does the girl have to hide in the cavern, in the little in the tent? How come she can't come out and talk with us? we have kind of limited ideas, and we're like little larva stages in our spiritual awakening and evolution. Of course, the avatar or the spiritual teacher, Jesus, had this very special mission, and extraterrestrials had an experience. I'm going to share you a story. A friend of mine, Dr. Frank Stranges, who we're going to see in a second, used to go on board the ship of Victor 1 pretty much 2 or 3 times a year whenever Valiant Thor asked him, and he would have a lot of wonderful experiences. And one of the things they have is called a history coin. You can go back and view the history. You can go back and view your past lives. You can have a lot of understanding in your spiritual and soul development when you reach a level of spiritual maturity, and there's a point of contact there. That's coming for all of us in the not too distant future. So there's great plans. The bad guys, these negative space programs, the government, the HAARP, the chemtrails, the vaccinations, pay no attention to it. It's done. They're still running some negative things, and you could get caught up in a war or, you know, some of their false flags. Most of them are completely false. Oh, Manchester, there was a bombing. No one died. They kept showing this picture that was created, completely orchestrated. Same thing in Las Vegas. That was an orchestrated event. Some people did die, but there wasn't machine guns taking people out. They were close-range snipers or some shots like that. These are designed to keep people in fear, and so they can push forward their agenda of negativity. So Dr. Frank was a Secret Service agent, and he was an ordained minister, and he was had a lot of titles and names. He was an immigration judge. He worked with the police departments, national police departments as a pastor, and he used to lecture around the world about his experiences with Valiant Thor. But he used to put in these history coins, and one of his favorite scenes was looking at Moses in the burning bush. And you know, he said Moses walked across and saw the bush, and he actually used to watch that. He used to watch The Last Supper. And I asked him about it. He goes, well, it's a long time, you know, it's in real time. It's not like a movie where you can fast forward and do scenes. If you want to see The Last Supper, you go into the room and you watch the whole scenario there. So one of the things in the Bible, like they talk about speaking in tongues, and people go, in the Bible, after Christ died 3 days, he said, on the 3rd day, everyone gather in the upper room and meditate until something, you know, I'll send my spirit to you. And at that time, everyone in the room was in silence and in meditation. It's filled with about 200 people. And all of a sudden, they all started to have a flame coming out of their third eye. And they were able to have a descent of the Holy Spirit, kind of a mystical process of realization to share the knowledge that Christ was sharing, which was love and forgiveness primarily. And they all started speaking different languages. Now this is the time of Passover, so it was the time of year where there was a lot of trade going through Jerusalem at that time. So there were people from all around the world, and they started speaking and kind of praising God in the Spirit. And people from all the world, you know, they could hear Chinese, you know, Middle Eastern languages, whatever the languages were at the time, Roman and Egyptian, they started speaking them. So that's speaking in tongues. When you see a guy go, hey, hallelujah, slap him down, all that's kind of like a made-up thing that people kind of get into a hysteria with. It doesn't have any, it's a belief system, and we have to separate belief from reality and understand the truth of certain things. So that was one of his favorite history coins. Dr. Frank was on board the ships, and he kind of, when he would come back, he would tell us what Valiant Thor, he'd write a book, he'd have an experience for 3 days, and they'd give him some teachings, and he'd write a book, and then he would tell you what he learned on board the ship. We did that twice a year in Las Vegas, and Valiant Thor would tell him, Dr. Frank, stop preaching. And he says, Valiant Thor told me to stop preaching. Hallelujah, praise Jesus. So he was kind of anathema in that way, but he actually has met the Ascended Master Jesus, and you understand from what I told you yesterday, one of those stories about Lady Krebs, the technology, and you hear here from Tony, reversing your aging. There's very high technology when it comes to the human form, and we've been kept in ignorance about it. And part of the science of immortality and knowing who we are is to realize that we're all immortal. We all are here for an experience. These are just little meat suits, as Lady Gaga showed us, that you just put down and one day and you take up another one. But that doesn't have to happen. In fact, the Avatar Jesus said, the last enemy to be conquered shall be death. So the process of is not hanging on to life to extend your life form, but to live a life free from pain and suffering and live it in health in accordance with God's laws. And that's one of the main missions of the Venusians. And talk about a male-dominated group here. You know, and what's their best favorite image of Christ? Hanging on the cross, the victory of Satan, allegedly, where he died. But the resurrection is where we need to focus our consciousness on, not with these men. If you ever heard of the rat line, that was how the Nazis escaped after World War II, and that was run by the old Pope, that creepy guy, Ratzinger. Yeah, well, the rat line, he organized all the Nazis getting out of Nazi Germany. There is a group of hostile aliens, and just because they're reptilian doesn't mean they're negative. Just because they have gray skin doesn't mean they're abducting type of aliens that violate your free will. So my friend Louis, who has been inside these inner temple retreats of the Great White Brotherhood, which I shared with the other group the other day, was taken into the inner retreats of the mountain, because in Atlantean times, the destruction and the negativity had reached such epic proportions that there were battles and they destroyed the planet. In a moment of madness, they threw it all away. And so Lemuria and Atlantis destroyed each other and the earth, and the negativity of the radiation was so great that humanity as a species devolved. And at that time there were some spaceships, and they were very large, and they had a number of beings on them, equal masculine, feminine, and they had only been worked in the atmosphere. And 4 of them attempted to make it to Venus, and they did. And I think there were 6, and 1 never heard of, and I think 3 of the ships stayed here on Earth and tried to survive in the Tibetan highlands, where they felt the radiation wouldn't be so bad. But that's kind of the history of the post-flood. So you have groups from these civilizations that went underground and created little repositories around the earth. There's 12 of them. And they have maintained a civilization, and they've advanced spiritually and technologically, and they live underneath the earth. And they'll be coming out soon and sharing. There's already information of them coming forward, and they're making contact with people like my friend Louis Martens. Now, the inner earth doesn't look like that. That's kind of an artist's conception. It's more honeycomb. But there's lots of different caverns in the smaller areas of the earth, and there is a larger one deep down. These ancient, in the end of Atlantis, King Atlan sent his daughter, Queen Maya, to Central America to maintain and to try and reestablish the sacred teachings of love and light and truth. And so the Mayan civilization actually was started by the Atlanteans. And then we have Egypt as well. So Egypt was another center where they tried to establish the truth, and the negative priesthoods took it over. I think we heard from one of our speakers yesterday about Tutankhamun was murdered, and there's lots of information. I'll tell you another interesting story that's been revealed. When you hear about Moses and the Exodus, Pharaoh was actually Moses's brother by this, he was found, we know the story, and they were actually working together. Pharaoh had to pretend that he was with the bad priests, but he helped to cover Moses' escape. Moses knew the way into the Great Pyramid, and he had the codes to get in, and he was taking all the ancient records and certain technologies, and the Pharaoh was building this other temple complex, and they had secreted it outside. And then when Moses made his exodus, he went and got these sacred records and technologies and led the people out. So some of the story in the Bible is incorrect. And I'll tell you, that's in a book called Other Tongues and Other Flesh. And that's by a guy named George Hunt Williamson. And what happened was, he was leading the army chasing Moses, but he was kind of going slow and waiting. And when Moses got there, of course, the Brotherhood with advanced technology literally parted the waters. And there's a guy named Klaus Donna who has a friend at NASA, and they moved a satellite over where a guy had been bugging him for years. This is where it's at. This is where they crossed. I know the place. And Klaus Donna got the satellite through a friend of his, finally listened to the guy, and they put it over, and they found this trail of stuff. He's actually gone and recovered some of the ancient Egyptian chariots and stuff. But so the parting of the Red Sea was kind of a guided plan by the forces of light to maintain the efforts of truth and to create a vehicle for the Christ. Before I get to that, I want to talk about when Moses parted the sea, Pharaoh held up and said, no, we're not going in there. And the Amun priesthood knew they didn't trust the Pharaoh because they suspected that he was in allegiance with Moses. And it was a pretty political story, but basically they went in, and of course they perished. And there was a whirlwind, and the Pharaoh was taken up in a spaceship, and he was taken back to his son. And there was some sort of earthquake going on, and the temple was being destroyed. And him and his son perished in, I think one of them perished in the earthquake, and then the priest came in and killed the other one. So that was kind of the end of the light there in Egypt. So there's something called the office of the Christ, and that is a position for a teacher that comes in and kind of uplifts the race every 2,000 years. And there's different beings that have done that in the past. The Earth is unique in that the galaxy has a administration, and there's like these archangels. And in the Earth's particular position, because it was a contested area with so much negativity, the ensouling archangel of our galaxy, who they call Archangel Michael, overshadowed Christ, who was a high avatar teacher. He knew he had a special mission, and he lived a very special and pure life, and showed a lot of forgiveness for the people that were out to kill him, and he continually spread the message of unconditional love and forgiveness. And so he actually made the decision to actually die. He did die. He didn't take a thing. But he did appear around after his death in his resurrected form. He walked, there's a book called He Walked the Americas. He appeared in India. He had lots of different contacts around the world where he continued to spread his message after he passed away from what we know. And there was extraterrestrial contacts during his mission. He took John and